Hey guys, from Australia. Today we're working on a Kia Sorento XM series 2010 turbo diesel platinum. XM series were 2009 through to 2015, and this is an all-wheel drive. Today we're just going to briefly talk about the install of the tail shaft, and the reason why we have the tail shaft out is because there was a driveline vibration, and which has taken quite a few trial and errors to get to the root cause of the vibration. But essentially we've replaced drive shafts, struts, ball joints, a whole bunch of things, and it hasn't resolved. We ended up taking the tail shaft out and it did improve, but the vibration was still there, and it turns out to be the torque converter in the automatic transmission. When the gear was changing up, when the transmission was changing up through the gears, second, third, fourth, and so on, under just light load, there was a vibration type wobble in the gearbox transmission, and it was transferring down the tail shaft, and it felt like the fault was in the rear end, but it was actually coming from the transmission and transferring through the front all-wheel drive transfer case, down the tail shaft and into the rear diff. And we finally got to the bottom of it by servicing the transmission and putting a special additive into the transmission to resolve the shudder, even though all the experts were saying that it didn't feel like a shuddering issue. But this shudder additive has improved the vehicle's drivetrain and no longer have the vibration. So we're going to reinstall the tail shaft. The front is 4 bolts, and they've got a 12mm head. The center bearing is 2 bolts, and it's just your tail shaft support, and they've got a 14mm head, and you've got 3 bolts on the rear flexible coupling, and there's already 3 bolts permanently bolted to that, and you just undo the 3 alternative bolts which bolt to the all-wheel drive coupling on the rear diff. So you need a various range of tools. I've got sockets, extension and ratchet, and I've got open enders and ring spanners as well. 17, 19, 14 and a 14. A few different combinations to get to the bolts. We'll go under and we will install the tail shaft. Okay, we're under the vehicle now. We're looking towards the front. This is the front transfer case off the transmission for the all-wheel drive. Cleaned up the face, make sure there's no dirt on there. Check the threads, make sure that's all clean and prepared, ready to go. And that's where the universal joint will bolt up to on the tail shaft. And then working our way through to the center, we've got the center mount for the center bearing. Just make sure those faces are clean, and the same with the tail shaft center bearing bracket, and also for the rear mounting point, which mounts up to the all-wheel drive coupling, which is a hydraulic controlled electronic coupling that locks the rear diff in when the all-wheel drive senses any slip. Now I have cleaned up the faces, those 3 points that the tail shaft will bolt up to, but I have put some grease in this center spigot there, the locating spigot. It's important that the faces are clean and free of grease, because that's also a friction face. When you clamp the bolts, when you tighten the bolts up, they will clamp hard onto that face there and help with the drive. If you were to lubricate those faces, they could slip and then start putting load on the bolts. One other suggestion is to use Loctite on the bolts that bolt to the all-wheel drive coupling and the all-wheel drive transfer case. Loctite just on the threads. Don't need them for the center bearing mount bolts, but certainly for the front and rear bolts, to ensure that they don't come undone and they stay secure. Okay, we're going to put the tail shaft in now. So we will locate the tail shaft into the rear all-wheel drive coupling first with that spigot, and then we will go up to the front. It's a little bit tricky because of the length. You just sometimes it might be best to have a trolley jack just to support the tail shaft, and get the front coupling bolted up, and then we will be right to continue bolting the tail shaft. Okay, so I fed the tail shaft into that little gap, that little space there, so I can slide it forward and get onto the spigot on the rear all-wheel drive coupling. Once you get the spigot located, get your two center bolts, your two bolts on the center bearing. Just get them in a few threads to hold the shaft up, and then you can go ahead and finish bolting, getting all your bolts in loose to make sure everything's located properly, and finish bolting everything up. Just going to put a little bit of Loctite on the threads, only a small amount like that. Once you've got a little bit of Loctite on there, which is hard to see, yep, then we can bolt. Put those bolts in. So I get everything finger tight first, just get them in a few threads to make sure everything is located in there, and then I'll finish bolting everything up all the way along. Okay, tail shaft is in, all bolted up. I'll pack up everything and take it for a test drive and make sure everything feels good and secure. And that's the tail shaft removal install for a XM Kia Sorento.